Hey, what's up guys? It's Anarchy, and today I'm bringing you the definitive Marvel Avengers game review. Now, you may be thinking, what's so different about your review to someone else's? And well, there's really isn't that much of a big difference. I'm just reviewing the game from another perspective, and from another opinion, to try and shine more light on other aspects of the game that I don't think maybe some other game reviewers would have covered, and to maybe give obviously another opinion. So I'm going to review this as someone who's not watched any reviews yet on the game, and who's played the game through to the end of the main reassemble campaign with a little slice of the end game content. And honestly, this game's not that bad. Let's start with the gameplay. When you initially start playing Avengers, you will notice right away that the game runs fairly well, and from a purely technical standpoint, it's pretty well polished. In my time of playing, I only had 3 crashes, and I was playing on the original Xbox One, so that could be the issue. Now, this is from my experience, as I'm sure that other people have had more bugs and crashes, etc. So take what I say with a grain of salt. On the other hand, the combat leaves something to be desired. It feels very hollow and just not really fleshed out as well, as much as there is a decently large skill tree for every character. But about everything to do with the combat, it just feels really average. The combat works well, but it really isn't interesting or fun after a while, and I eventually just started skipping optional fights altogether near the end of my playtime. Now, most of the systems, gameplay wise anyway, work well in this game, but somehow these systems also just feel empty and half-assed. Can't really pinpoint why that is. I think it just must have been something to the way the game was made, but it just feels like they made an average product so that they could have something to release with the Avengers name on it. Now, I would also like to say that I was a huge advocate of this game pre-release. I cut the beta a lot of slack and also stayed very optimistic about it, but I can't help but feel that this game could have done with a bit more effort or time in the oven. So, to be honest, summary, the gameplay is an all-around quite solid, with the combat being responsive and serviceable, although quite boring, lackluster after a while. Now, I'm going to talk about the story here, so be aware of spoilers ahead if you plan to play the game yourself, which I still suggest you do if you haven't already. If not, then feel free to continue watching, and there will be timestamps in the description below for anyone wanting to skip past. But yeah, the story is probably one of the strongest parts in this game, honestly. My favorite part about it isn't even really the story itself, but the level design in some of these missions. They really stand out and are quite unique at times, which offers something nice and refreshing, which is in contrast to the rest of the game. As for the narrative itself, that's also pretty good. It tells the story of a young girl called Kamala Khan, later also known as Miss Marvel, who gains superpowers after the events of A-Day, which is the first mission. Now, after 5 years, the Avengers have disbanded and all gone their separate ways, with Captain America believed to have been killed in the explosion of the helicarrier on A-Day. So it follows her struggle as Inhumans, people with superpowers after A-Day, are now shunned by society, and she has to find the Avengers again to stop AIM from killing and experimenting on the Inhumans. Now, AIM are the bad guys of the game, and are a corporation who are trying to reverse the effects of the Inhuman disease and restore humanity to what it was. Obviously, that isn't what they're trying to do, but it's what they say in the game, and for story purposes, and what drives people against the Avengers, as they have been deemed a threat to society after the events of A-Day. So, Kamala goes on and finds all the Avengers over the course of the game and rebuilds S.H.I.E.L.D. along with the helicarrier as well as the Resistance, which are a group of Inhumans. Inhumans that are fighting against AIM. So eventually, after some struggles amongst themselves, the Avengers finally find out that Captain America is alive and that AIM wants to kill all the Inhumans. So AIM then launches drones to obviously kill all the Inhumans all across the US. The Avengers then find out the source of the signals in the San Francisco Bay Area where A-Day took place and set out to finish AIM. They get there, kill enemies, disable antennas, and eventually fight MODOK, who is the owner of AIM and the main, I guess you could say, antagonist, and kill his Kree Sentry, which was actually what was under the bay the whole time. Now, this fight is actually pretty cool, as you do get to play as each of the Avengers, which ends with Kamala, and as it should, obviously, as the story is technically about her, so I think it is only fitting that it ends with her too. Some people were upset with this decision, and I could kind of understand that, but the story was about her, but I do believe that that was the right choice. Now, overall, the story is pretty solid too, and definitely a highlight of the game. Now, on to the penultimate section, endgame content. The endgame content of this game is very average and could do some improvements, and overall is probably the worst part of the game. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad, I just personally think it's the weakest link. Endgame consists of Warframe-like missions that are quick and simple with one or two objectives, or semi-open world areas called war zones, which offer hidden chests, bounties, and other side objectives, as well as, obviously, a main one. There is some more things, such as villain sectors, but I haven't got to play those yet, so unfortunately, I will not review those as of now. Now, something that is good are the iconic missions. These are missions that focus around a specific character and see you tackling unique mission with its own narrative and dialogue. It's a nice break in between the repetitiveness of the endgame content, and if you complete the rest of the iconic mission storyline for your character of choice, obviously you can do this with any characters, you're not stuck to one character for these iconic missions, then you do get their iconic outfit, which is the outfits they wear on A-Day or the front cover of the game if you haven't bought it yet. We also have the faction missions. These are also narrative focused and drive the story forward. Honestly, these are pretty good. So far there are only 2 factions in the game, Shield and the Resistance. The Shield storyline follows you tracking down Taskmaster and some Shield data, and as for the Resistance one, it's more at collecting items dropped by enemies mission to begin with. Now, there are some missions like that see you collecting resources from certain enemy types, and they aren't that bad as they're just your typical MMO, collect these, do this type mission, which are a given nowadays. And that's pretty much it for endgame content, honestly. There are daily and weekly missions, but they also vary between Warzone missions and Drop Zone missions and other shorter missions, so they aren't really unique, although a good addition for the longevity of the game. Do lastly have the Harm Room challenges, which is just wave survival for comics and other gear and collectibles, but they really aren't that interesting or worth really talking about, as basically all they are is wave survival, as I said. So overall, the end game can be really good, but also can be pretty boring and tedious, and until they add more, you just have to bear with what's there for now. Finally, I'd like to move on to my conclusion and other thoughts on the game. So I'd like to start off with addressing the microtransactions in the game. Yes, it is a $60 game. Yes, I do believe it's wrong to have microtransactions in a $60 game, but since it is a live service game and all future content updates will be completely free, they do need to fund the game in the long run for this content, meaning that they do need to monetize it somehow, and I'd rather it be through skins and battle passes than pay to win gear sets and whatnot. Now, that brings me on to another topic, the live service model. I personally am a huge fan of live service games when they are done right. I was actually kind of happy and excited when this game was announced as a live service game, because it increases longevity of a product if done right, and I'm all for a huge MMO like Avengers game with tons of characters and content and a good supportive dev team. We will have to see how this turns out, but so far it is looking good with the content they've announced and how responsive and open the dev team is. The multiplayer also works pretty well and is quite solid. So in conclusion, then I really do see good things in the future for this game. It needs a bit more polishing and some more interesting content, but I really do think if the devs listen and don't abandon the game, that could really turn into something truly great in the long term. As for the game right now, I still do believe it is worth it. Buy if you're a fan, or if you're a fan of Marvel or the MMO like genre. But anyway, that will do for this video. I do plan on making more content on this game and some others on the way, so hopefully stick around with me, and I'll see you guys in the next video.